So this is the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus, which currently is the most powerful version of the EZBook 3 series. It comes with a larger 14-inch Full HD screen and with a much more powerful processor, the Intel Core M3 7Y30, which is by far ahead of the Intel Celeron N3450, which they used, for example, in the Jumper EZBook 3 Pro. So let's have a quick look around the laptop and check out what the first impressions are. So the very first thing that sticks out on the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus is how thin this laptop is. Just look at this body. It's just beautiful. Really nice. So on the right side of the laptop we have a DC in port, a 3.5mm headphone jack, a full USB port and the micro SD card reader. And despite this USB port being blue, it is not a USB 3.0 port, it's just a USB 2.0 port. You need to be aware of that. There is another USB port on the opposite, which is a USB 3 port. This one on the right side also does not power external hard drives, while the second USB port on the other side does. Talking about the other side, this is what we'll find here. There is a charging indicator LED which can light up in red while charging and green when charging is finished. We also have a micro HDMI port and the aforementioned second USB 3.0 port. On the top right above the screen of the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus we find the 2-megapixel webcam along two microphones which can record stereo audio, and those actually sound quite decent. Like the Jumper EZBook 3 Pro, the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus is entirely made from metal, and despite the thin body it actually is really sturdy, which you can see when I lift it on one edge. And it is also surprisingly light. The weight of it is only 1.3 kilograms, which is pretty decent considering that the smaller Jumper EZBook 3 Pro also has about 1.3 kilograms of weight. So due to the larger 14-inch screen, the body of the EZBook 3 Plus of course grew larger compared to the EZBook 3 Pro. And it's actually nice to see them not wasting any of that additional space there. They actually included a larger keyboard which allows them to make the single keys and their spacing larger. And that actually makes up for a very comfortable typing experience, but not only that, they also included a very nice large trackpad here, which is manufactured by Synaptics, so it's a pretty good touchpad there, not a cheap one. And it actually is a precision touchpad, so you can use all those Windows 10 gestures and configure them to your likings, setting up a similar experience to a MacBook Pro, which is a really nice thing. And what I also like is that the touch surface doesn't clatter around, it's very solid, very sturdy, it feels great, like on a premium laptop, and the buttons are great to click. They have a good resistance, but still not too much of it. Feels really good. Now if we look at the bottom, you might notice that there are no speaker openings, and this is because they are hidden inside the hinge of the laptop. So the only opening which actually is covered is this SSD slot covered by this lid, which is an M2 SATA 3 SSD slot, and out of the box there already is a 128GB SSD inside of there, which is made by Foresee. Now, all in all, I really like the build quality of the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus. It really feels like a premium laptop, it looks great, and it's just a pretty good device in terms of build quality there. The only thing I really dislike is that the hinge isn't as sturdy as it used to be, for example, on the Jumper EZBook 3 Pro. On the EZBook 3 Pro you could lift the laptop without changing the screen's angle, but you can't do this here, as you can see. It immediately changes the angle, and also if you lift the laptop, the screen will change the angle, as you can see. So the hinge is not as sturdy as it used to be on the EZBook 3 Pro, which is a bit disappointing. And well, there is a certain benefit by that though. because you can actually open the screen without having to put pressure on the base part. So of course you guys also want to have a look inside, and I have now unscrewed the bottom plate, and as you can see, this thing looks really nice inside, very structured. No tapes or anything like that, like you often see it in those cheap Chinese tablets, so built inside is great as well. As you can see, the keyboard has some sturdy metal plate on its back, which prevents it from bouncing. Here we have all the ports on the right side of the laptop, and here is the motherboard with a copper heatsink on top, which is important because the Intel Core M3 7x30 does get quite hot, so you need a decent cooling solution in order to get rid of the heat. Then most part of the space is used by the large battery, which as far as I can feel consists of 3 cells, 1 here and 2 in this direction. And here is the speaker part, and the hinge actually is made from metal inside, just the cap around it is made from plastic. And this one here is the SSD that comes built in with this laptop. As you can see, it's a Foresee SSD with 128 GB, and it's the smallest form factor available for the M2 slot. But as you can see, you can also use a larger SSD because there is a second spot for a screw. So now I fired up the EZBook 3 Plus, and as you can see, the screen is rather bright. There's no issues fighting my studio light here, and the anti-glare coating of it really does help there. Now there is one downside though. This laptop does not use an IPS panel, it's just a TN panel, and this means that vertical viewing angles aren't good at all, as you can see. Especially those darker colors quickly fade out and invert as soon as the viewing angle isn't optimal anymore. Horizontal viewing angles actually are pretty good, as you can see. So it's just the vertical viewing angle. But still, if you don't watch movies most of the time, if you don't do much picture editing on your laptop, if you just do typing work, browsing the web and all that stuff, the screen still is totally fine. I mean, I really have no issues working with this one. It's still an okay panel, it's just the viewing angles that kind of screwed up. It's bright enough, colors look okay, it's sharp enough too. Let me zoom in a bit to show you that. So really the only downside are viewing angles there. Now if you wonder why my Windows installation here is in German, I will tell you the reason right now. I sadly had to do a complete reinstall after the arrival of this laptop because it had some spyware or malicious software on it, which was totally annoying. This one opened QR codes by itself, one window after another, and if you didn't close them all the time, it will completely waste all of your screen space with QR codes. I did some screenshots of that yesterday. Let me just look them up. So here you go. This is how this looked like. It opened one QR code window after another. And what the fuck happened? Whatever. I think Windows just crashed. Anyhow, I couldn't get rid of it really. I mean, I could delete some of those application files, but there still have been services of this thing running in the background. So I decided to do a full reinstall of Windows to get rid of it and of anything else going on in the background there, right? Just to be on the safe side. And I really suggest you to do the same when you get the EZBook 3 Plus. When you order it, create a Windows installation stick right away and do a clean install after it arrives, in order to have a clean and fast running system without any malicious software on it. It's really a shame that it do this. So performance-wise, the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus performs pretty nicely. As you can see, the advertised Intel Core M3 7x30 is there. The base clock of the 2 processor cores is 1 GHz, but it can reach up to 2.45 GHz. and each of those cores can actually handle 2 threads. And we also have the advertised 8 GB of DDR3L RAM inside of there. Sadly, it doesn't display the speed of the RAM, the clock of the RAM, so I don't see if it's running at full speed, but I think it should. If it wouldn't, you couldn't change it anyhow, since the UEFI menu is locked, so you can only change basic settings there, but all the pro settings are hidden. So for example, you can't disable any of the thermal management stuff and anything like that. But it also isn't really necessary in my opinion. I did some benchmark tests already on this one, and look at this. In Antutu, the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus scored 204,304 points, which is a pretty decent result. And also the internal SSD speed is pretty good, as you can see, especially the reading data rate is fairly okay for such a cheap SSD. The Wi-Fi speed is totally fine as well. I could easily max out my internet connection, and also the signal strength is pretty good. This test has been run one floor below the router, and as you can see, still 44 Mbit per second, so Wi-Fi antenna seems to be good. 3D does also a fairly decent job. Those are the results from the GFX benchmark. Let me zoom in a bit. As you can see, I'm zooming with the touchpad now. The multi-touch gestures do work just fine. So here we go. T-Rex test 42.91 FPS in the on-screen test. Really decent result. Manhattan test 27.11 FPS. So you can do some gaming on this one, some very light gaming with reduced details and resolution. I already tried Crysis 3, and this game actually ran fairly well with the lowest graphics settings. So yeah, the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus is a pretty decent performer, not necessarily for gaming, but mostly for everyday's work like blogging and such stuff. It does a really good job with that. As far as thermals go, let's just have a look at this real time. I'm not doing anything CPU intensive right now, so as you can see, we are currently running at 30 degrees Celsius, which is a really good value actually. And this here is the maximum temperature it reached today, which was while playing Asphalt Extreme for around half an hour, I think. So that's 80 degrees Celsius, and while playing this game it was placed on a bed, so it was insulating the heat and it couldn't really get away, and still it didn't hit any thermal throttling here. So cooling is actually working fairly okay there, and the surface actually remains touchable all the time, so it's not getting uncomfortable. You definitely feel the heat, but it's not hurting you, so that's pretty good. Regarding audio quality, the internal speaker of the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus, which is located somewhere here, as you have been able to see when it was open, sounds okay. It isn't the best, it also doesn't have the highest volume, but it is acceptable. It doesn't distort that much. It has slight basses, not very intense, but you can improve them by using the Realtek HD Audio Manager here, by going into Sound Manager and then to Sound Effect, and then you can choose Bass Boost here in the menu, and this will boost basses, but bear in mind that then you will hear distortions on maximum volume. So if you want to use maximum volume on this laptop, you shouldn't enable Bass Boost, because this would result in scratching noises. Battery life is surprisingly good. I get around 6 hours of total operation time with this laptop, which for a Core M laptop is really good. If you remember the test of the Cube Thinker i35, which also used the Intel Core M3 7Y30, this one only got around 3 to 4 hours of operation time with my kind of use. So it was really bad, but this one does a fairly good job. I think 6 hours isn't the best, but it's totally acceptable for a laptop like this. Keyboard wise, I'm pretty excited about the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus. No, it isn't the best keyboard I have seen in a Chinese laptop to date, but it's very comfortable typing on it. The resistance of the keys isn't that high, so it's pretty easy to press them, but you still feel that you pressed a key. And also the key travel isn't too huge. It's somewhere the perfect key travel I like, so I can type really fast on this laptop. And as you can see, there's also pretty much no flex at all. I need to push really hard to barely see moving this keyboard. So it's a pretty quality keyboard. The only downside of it is that it sometimes triggers double characters. So for example, you type away on the keyboard, hit the G, and suddenly you have 2 G's on the screen despite hitting it just once. So that's a problem a lot of Chinese laptops have. It doesn't happen overly often on this one, just sometimes. So it's not too annoying, and I personally can live with this. But if you don't like something like this to happen at all, you probably should stay away from this laptop. But as I said, it doesn't happen too often, so I personally can live with it. And there also are no other issues like buttons that are getting stuck or something like that. So in general, the keyboard is great, just like the touchpad. So there we go, I guess. That's the most important stuff you need to know about the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus, and this enough for the first impressions. So this thing actually can be a bargain offer if you can get it at around 350 euros, at which it often sells at GearBest when they have some coupon offering for this one. The regular price mostly is at around 400 euros. Still a pretty decent price tag, but probably not the best offer due to the malicious software pre-installed on the Windows installation there, and also the missing IPS panel. If they would have put an IPS panel inside of there, it would be a bargain even at 400 euros, I think, but it doesn't have an IPS panel, so that's kind of sad. But well, if you can catch it at 350 euros, go for it. I think there is nothing you can do wrong with it. So far, I really like this laptop. Really good performance, great build quality, and the touchpad is really usable. So yeah, let's see how it performs during the next days of using it in real life. And then after a week or so, I will do the full review on the Jumper EZBook 3 Plus. So thanks for watching this first impressions video, and see you then with the full review. Bye bye.